to The Audible, presented by Trader Joe's. I'm Bruce Feldman, joined by my colleagues from The Athletic, Stuart Mandel and Ralph Russo. It is week one. We just had an interesting week 0. We're going to get into all of that and what we're so much excited about for this week. But a little window into the new Audible. Now we're on video. And I got to say, for the last 20 minutes, as we were trying to figure out technology, man, Stu's not a big profanity guy, but I think that took a big test in the last 20 minutes, Ralph.
Between Stu's camera angle, my headphones, and some audio issues, yeah. I mean, the scheduled 1:30 Eastern kickoff got pushed back a little bit.
We're going to have to add an extra 15 minutes in for getting everything set up. I would hope as we get more used to this, it'll come quicker, but this is only our second, to be fair, our second episode of video. Guys, I got a lot of positive feedback from people about our first 3-person episode.
Cool. I didn't, but only, but I didn't get negative feedback. Let me rephrase that. I didn't necessarily come across a bunch of positive feedback, but I also didn't necessarily get a bunch of negative feedback. Mostly, I will say, generally speaking, there was a lot of enthusiasm when we made the announcement that I was coming on, and that made me feel very good. So thank you, everybody, for saying, oh, this seems like a great addition, or we really are excited to have you on the show as well. So again, thank you to Stu and Bruce for inviting me and allowing me to be a part of this. And again, a thank you to those of you who have been rather enthusiastic about my entry into the show.
Ralph's going to class the place up, Stu, and it needs classing up for sure.
He already has.
Yeah. So, as I said, we're going to get into the biggest week one we've ever had, at least for the long time that the three of us have been covering the sport. But there was week 0. We had a top 25 matchup. It felt very much like real college football, even though it was in Dublin, Ireland. What did you guys think?
Well, it was a really ugly, but still fun game for the first 3 quarters. I don't know what happened in the fourth, but suddenly Avery Johnson and Rocco Beck just took it to ludicrous speed, as I said on Twitter that day, and it ended up being a really exciting ending. And I'd be curious about. So we're going to talk about this week 1, right? We have a tendency, because we've waited 8 months for football, to wildly overreact to these results. I found myself coming off Kansas State, Iowa State. That was a really fun game. I don't know that we learned that much about these teams. It was such a close game. It wasn't like anybody made a quote unquote statement win in that.
Well, so full disclosure, folks, give you a little insight into my personal life here. Had to move a kid into college this week. Sophomore year at the University of Pittsburgh is upon us. So I was mostly moving things, running errands, trying to make my wife and child as happy as possible on Saturday. I had to refresh on Saturday. I did catch the ending of the Stanford game, which was not great for
Quite
Stanford.
Dramatic.
Yeah, quite great, but not. And I watched the replay of the Kansas State game, or at least the back half of the Kansas State Iowa State game. So I don't have the opportunity to necessarily overreact to these games because I wasn't living in them in the moment. I will say, listen. I saw our game story, the Athletics game story, sort of moved in takeaways after the game. And one of the comments was something to the effect of the Athletic, and I think this was used to, picked Iowa State to finish 6th in the Big 12 and Kansas State to finish 1st. How's that looking right now? Here's what I would say. The difference between 1st and 6th in the Big 12 is one game and a bunch of tiebreakers.
I believe I had one going 7-2 and the other going 6-3.
Right. So there's not a whole lot of difference between 1 and 6 in the Big 12, but in a conference where it probably will come down to a bunch of tiebreakers, getting a leg up on a team that you will most likely be contending with is a big deal. So this should be a somewhat impactful game. I don't know if either of these teams are great, but I see no reason why they won't be among the 6 to 8 contenders in the Big 12.
Can I get some flowers here? Because I did pick, not that this is already, the season's been decided by a week 0 game, but I have Iowa State winning the Big 12 and obviously going to the playoff. They win the Big 12. And a big reason why, and again, I don't know if this fits in the category of overreacting, but it was something that both Matt Campbell and Rocco Becht had talked about when I saw them about a month ago, that kind of came to fruition or came into clarity, which is, I think we all here have a ton of respect for Matt Campbell as a coach for what the job he's done in Ames. 2019, they finished number 9 in the country. It's the best season in Cyclones history. And then they kind of backslid a little bit. You kind of wondered, is that fluky? What happened? And talking to him a lot, one of the things he really pointed out was the culture kind of slipped for a couple of different reasons. Some of it was staff issues, some of it was a little bit locker room related, but it got away from them a little bit. And Rocco Becht was a huge part of them getting it back. And he has such confidence and such belief in Rocco Becht. He was a guy who beat out a Elite 11 quarterback, J.J. Cole, who is a much bigger recruiting profile. Rocco Becht, obviously, his dad, really good NFL player, now a UFL coach, Anthony Becht, mom, terrific gymnast at West Virginia back when they were together in Morgantown a long time ago. But what you saw, I think, is a guy who's just a gamer who finds a way to make the big plays. He was inconsistent in the first half of the game, but he made 2 big throws for touchdowns. But the moment to me that was huge was they're up 3. K-State just hit a big play for a touchdown. And there's a little over 2 minutes left. It's a rainy, sloppy conditions game. And Matt Campbell is going for it on 4th and 3. Now, if you kick a field goal and you make it, you're only up 6. It's not like it's put the game out of reach anyway. And I always feel like that's like a karma thing. If you only do that, it comes back to bite you. It just feels like it does more times than not. His thing, and I think it's really a big thing for him, is I trust my guys and I really trust Rocco. We're going for it. So they get it. They don't score, but they come down to basically right outside the goal line, and that seals the game. And what I think is significant is the context here. This is not like a wild go for it guy. If you look back over the last 2 years, only Kansas in the Big 12 went for it less on 4th downs than Iowa State did. Now, they were really efficient when they did go, but they were not gambling with it a lot. He took a big shot. It obviously paid off. And I like how that sets up for them, showing, hey, I trust my guys. I'm going to lean on them, and it paid off.
Yeah, I would say this. The one nitpick I generally have with Campbell as a coach is the way he manages a game. Now, I understand often he does not have the more talented team, especially in the days when Texas and Oklahoma, and they were beating Texas and Oklahoma with more frequency than ever before at Iowa State. When they were in the league, I understand you want to manage the game a little more differently, maybe play a little closer to the vest. But I never loved the fact that he was a sort of 1997, Jim Tressel punted kind of coach. The fact that he maybe is branching out a little bit and being a little more bold, though, I didn't think that was necessarily a bold move. I thought that was just a smart move. Is I think a good thing about Matt Campbell. The other thing I'll say with Iowa State fans, like I was tempted to do this in our pre-show meeting, but I'm going to stop it right here. I will only mention we're not going to start talking about where Matt Campbell is going next. I know you guys just hate the national
the guy's
media.
Been there for 10 years at this point, right?
It's not because we're constantly doing that to the poor Cyclones.
I mean, it's been what, 4 years now since we all thought maybe he was going to go to USC, and that didn't happen. Ralph, to steal your stat that you put in the group chat, he's now beaten Kansas State for the last 5 years. That's a rivalry that Kansas State, frankly, owned for a long time before Matt Campbell got there. It has totally flipped. And I think most people nationally, because Kansas State was obviously one of the best programs in the sport for a long time under Bill Snyder, and they're still doing well. And so I think nationally, they're a more respected program in general. And this tells you more short term, you could argue it's been Iowa State. Now, K-State has the thing under Chris Kleiman that Matt Campbell doesn't. They actually won the Big 12 in 2022 when they upset TCU. It's the one thing that's eluded Matt Campbell at this point. Obviously, they got close last year, but until he can actually cross the finish line, I think there's still some skeptics out there, even though, my goodness, what he's done compared to their historic record is just incredible.
Before we move on, the one thing, so I was in studio at Fox all day Saturday. And so when I'm in studio, a lot of times, I'm not on social media, I'm not on Twitter constantly or whatever. So you guys, we have our group text on the side, and I did like a triple take when I saw there was like a link to a video of a fight outside of a stadium, and Ralph and Stu are texting about how this fight is between Avery Johnson's dad and his older brother. And I was like, there's no way this could be true. But it turns out it was true.
Well, they're both wearing his jersey. And at first it looks like Avery Johnson's dad is just pummeling somebody. And it's like, oh my God, it's his brother. They put out a joint apology the next day. And I don't think it got too far. Nobody was arrested or anything. But yeah, you don't see that every day.
Yeah, well, listen, we live in a different world now, right? Everything, like family disputes sometimes end up on social media. That's just, there are cameras everywhere. That's all I will impart that wisdom to you that I impart to my daughter. There are cameras everywhere, good viewer. Like, just be aware when you're doing something that you probably shouldn't be doing, illegal or not, or just boneheaded. There are cameras everywhere. And it's tough being a 5-star quarterback, I would also say. Like, your life is definitely under a microscope, and you need your family to stay in line too.
Okay, guys, it's week 1. It's here. And before we get into a couple of the games specifically, I got this question about a month ago. Somebody said, is this the best week 1 ever? And I don't know that any of us are ever qualified to say ever. Maybe there was a tremendous week 1 in 1910. I don't know. But according to our historical stats guru, Matt Brown, there have never been 3 top 10 matchups the first full weekend of the season.
I think on top of that, Stu, you have to go back to like 2017, where there's been 3 top 10 matchups in any week in the season, a regular season.
Yeah, I remember the 2016 one was a pretty big deal. Or 2017, you had that Florida State Alabama game where they were 2 versus 3, I think, in Atlanta. And that was like the beginning of the end of Jimbo Fisher's tenure there. But yeah, we have a 1 versus 3 game. We have LSU-Clemson in the Clemson Death Valley, and we've got Notre Dame going to Miami. So I do think, at least in my time covering it, it's the best one. But I think I'd be fired up. Even if it was 25 quote unquote crap matchups, it's still the first full Saturday of the college football season. It's one of my favorite times of the year.
Bruce, I wonder if you get a little, especially with you being on TV a lot. I guess this is a broader question about like being on TV, because I am not on TV, but I actually get a little butterflies before the first weekend of the season. Sometimes I feel like I get that dream, like I haven't turned in my homework assignment, like, because we're so busy leading up to the season that you find yourself going, I check in with my editor like 3 times. Do I owe you anything? What am I doing this weekend? Okay, I got a flight. Have I missed my flight? No, I haven't missed my flight. I'm not flying out until Friday. Is it Friday yet? No, it's actually only Wednesday. There's a weird anxiety that comes with the start of the season, because we are so busy during the season and it's work. It's almost like going back to school. So I have a little bit of that comes with me when we open the season. I'm wondering, Bruce, like, this actually maybe speaks to just you being on air, and you've done it for such a long time. So I imagine your comfort level is high. But do you have any, let's say, elevated anxiety, maybe some, opening day butterflies that come with opening weekend?
For me, because I just had week 0, and this season I'm going to be in studio. I'm not with Big Noon, and so. But Mike Hill, who I've worked with dating back to our days together at ESPN, and Chris Peterson, who I've known for a long time, he wasn't with us for week 0, but Friday night we're together, and then Saturday. I think it's the mechanics part for me that's a little different. When I say that, I mean, when I'm a sideline reporter, I have a dual IFB, which is like, basically 2 things in my ear. When I'm on set, I have 1, and it's just getting adjusted to, I don't wear a suit normally. And as you can see, it's like, I don't usually wear pants. I mean, I wear shorts, but
I guess
I
needed to clear that up quick.
Cutting at the tees for this one.
but like, for me, it's just, there's other elements of it. I usually not full disclosure, but I usually don't shave unless I'm going to be on camera that day. Right. And so there's just a lot of grown up things that I do because I know I'm going to be on camera that I usually are not into a rhythm of. So it's just okay, I haven't, maybe I do a handful of TV shows during the off season, but now all of a sudden it's I'm on the set. There's kind of different protocols and different routine that you just have to be mindful of. But in terms of the energy, man, I was so excited for when week 0, knowing that game is starting at 9 a.m., California time, because it was in Dublin. And I just, to me, it's the greatest time of year. When we were kids, I was more of an NFL fan than I was a college fan, but I would love August because I knew the NFL season was right around the corner. The only part I kind of was a real bitter taste in my mouth was we'd get those back to school flyers in the mail, and I hated school so much. So it was on one hand, I got football coming back. On the other hand, I got school. Well, now we're grown-ups. I don't have school. I mean, my kids do, but I don't. So there's no anxiety for me. It's just hey, just make sure you shave today. Hey, make sure, all the little detail things are there. But to me, it's just, you're so excited to see. We have spent so much time talking and writing about how we think things are going to go. And now we're going to find out. And more times than not, we're probably going to be not right on all of it. Maybe not right on most of it, but that's the part that's I'm not betting the game. So I just can't wait to see it. And so it's just managing the energy that is coming through you. I think that's the hardest thing, Ralph. It's not just oh, do I have an assignment or did I forget it? It's more just managing the energy and managing it in TV where you just don't get over your skis.
So Stu, how excited are you to see me in person this weekend?
I only realized that this morning that we're both going to be in Columbus. Very excited to see Ralph. Very excited to see the Buckeyes and the Longhorns. I would just
more
say
excited to see me though. More excited.
Yeah, definitely more excited to see you than Julian Sayan's college debut. That part's the easy part, frankly. Noon Eastern on Saturday, they kick the ball off. I'm having the time of my life. It'll be about 7 p.m. on Saturday when I sit down to do 20 final thoughts for the first time in 8-9 months. Then I'll be questioning my life choices and stress eating, and it's a grind. But I'm not complaining. So we're going to get into that game and many more week 1 in a second. But first, a quick break.
All right, we have to dive into this amazing slate of games, and we might as well start from the start, right? A 1 versus 3 matchup, Texas against Ohio State. A little disappointed we didn't get 1-2, but 1-3 will work just fine. Stu, you and I have been covering it long enough. I remember a similar matchup, Texas-Ohio State. They had a home and home, and they were both highly ranked. And this was back when Vince Young was the quarterback at Texas in 2005, if I remember correctly, or 2004 was what Texas went to Ohio State.
Both of those.
Yeah, Texas went to Ohio State and beat Ohio State. So this feels a little like that in some ways because highly ranked teams, and also now Young had played the year before, and I don't know if he had the hype as Arch Manning, but it was his first sort of coming out party. So we have the Arch debut, which is going to take up a lot of oxygen. And we have all these new players for Ohio State, the defending national champion, but also a couple of guys we're very familiar with, one in particular, and that's Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, and that was a week 2 game, the one in Columbus in 2005, and neither of them were the defending national champs. So that's a huge element of this, obviously. Now, I think it's going to be a much different looking Ohio State team starting at quarterback, but also, I mean, we've talked about it a million times, right? The core of that national championship team was guys who could have gone to the NFL and came back for another year. And now they are in the NFL. Now you still have Jeremiah Smith there. You still have Caleb Downs there. And you have guys who aren't technically returning starters, but they played so many games. Ohio State played so many games last year. These guys actually got a lot of reps. But I think all eyes are going to be on Arch, as they probably will be all season. I mean, it's so much hype for a guy who started 2 games last year, was good in those games. I would not say looked like a superstar in those games. I still think he'll be very good. But but what is good? Like for the Arch, I guess that's the question, right? Like, what would you consider to be a successful outing for him in this game? Was it just get the win, or is it win and throw for 4 touchdowns or something like that?
To me, it's get the win. If he gets the win, even if it's a 13-9 game, I think that's a big thing. You got to remember here, like, and by the way, just to go back to what Ralph had brought you in on, we've never had anybody who's been as hyped as Arch Manning is, right? I mean, it's not even close, because, and part of it is because of the way the media and social media world is now compared to, back in the Liner Vince Young days. It wasn't the same thing now. It's a constant 24/7 cycle. It's because of what his last name is, who his uncles are. It's because of this build up to it. I will give you this, and this isn't like a gold standard kind of boilerplate thing, but in the offseason, I did a pretty extensive story on Arch from the perspective of his parents, Cooper and Ellen. That story, in all the time I've been at The Athletic, is the most read story I've ever done. It's going to surpass by a lot. And the attention on Arch, is incredibly higher. Everything we write about him, everything that gets commented, whenever because there's a familiarity, there's an intrigue, there's a curiosity, all those things. Now, on the point of what is success for him in week 1, keep in mind, in front of him, Texas has to replace 4 starting offensive linemen, including a top 10 left tackle. Now, some good news, Trevor Gooseby, who's one of our Freaks List guys and is the most talented of the new offensive line, he was dealing with a hand injury. He's expected to go. Steve Sarkisian said that earlier today. That's a positive. But again, 4 new starters on the O-line. Matthew Golden, the first-round pick, is now in the NFL. And you're going to see a defense. Yeah, the D-line is largely overhauled, but you still have Caleb Downs, who might be the best defensive player in college football and is a unique piece. You have 2 linebackers in Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, who are all-American caliber athletes. And you don't exactly know what you're going to get from Matt Patricia, a new defensive coordinator who came from the NFL. And it's on the road. That's a lot to put on a guy who's largely a new starting quarterback with a Louisiana Monroe start and a Mississippi State start.
Yeah, I think for the folks who are a little overarching,
Get used to it.
Yeah,
can I just say real quick? I think the reason your story got that is because NFL fans care about him. I mean, I think in the college universe, right, we've seen this a million. Terrell Pryor was the most hyped ever. Trevor Lawrence was the most, we've seen a lot of these guys too.
But nobody knew who
NFL fans
those
didn't
names.
Right. NFL fans didn't give a crap about it.
But I think it's casual fans. Look, I think it's casual fans. I don't think it's the people who listen to the Audible. I don't think it's the people who listen to the other college podcasts. I think it is the casual fans who are not watching every game, who don't read that much about it. It's not just NFL fans. I think it is sports fans. It's not just that.
Yeah.
But I don't also think that that's not a bad thing. Like we want some more people coming into this sport just because I think the sport has lacked to a certain degree. Deion has been a breakthrough star as a coach, which is tricky as a coach because you're only standing on the sidelines, but he was a breakthrough star for college football. And I think college football to a certain degree has lacked some of that maybe since Tim Tebow. Breakthrough star. Travis Hunter kind of was a little bit of that. And again, because he was such a unique type of player. My very lukewarm take on Arch is that he's going to be good. He's going to be probably a little better than Quinn Ewers, and maybe not so great that you can't avoid having the tap the brakes guy in your mentions, right? When you tweet about a touchdown pass, wow, that was really nice. Hey, he's only played 1 game, tap the brakes, right? We get a lot of that with Arch. So I think he'll be good. I think he has a chance to be better than Quinn, who was a pretty good college quarterback. And we'll see what happens from there. I don't know. I don't necessarily see him going supernova in his first season as a starter, Stu.
Why don't we just give our picks? I like Texas in this because I think Ohio State, Texas has that offensive line is a big question mark. And I think I said last week, if they come out and give up 9 sacks, I'll feel like an idiot. But across the board, I think you know better what you're getting. Whereas Ohio State's going to be breaking in some. I mean, Ohio State's running game is a complete mystery. You have Caleb Downs in the secondary. You have like individual stars. But like you said, Bruce, this is going to be a completely different defense with Matt Patricia. So I don't get too caught. I mean, like I was at Columbus or Horseshoe in 2021 when they lost at home to Oregon. It's not like this is the most impossible place in America to play. It's possible Ohio State's best team and they just win, but I don't know. I'm always a little leery of teams that lose that many guys from a really good team.
With also 2 new coordinators, right? So it's not just new. And I understand Brian Hartline's been there a while, but now, stepping onto the big stage as far as being the play caller, we'll see exactly how that works. But college coaches can get very clandestine when it comes to how plays are called and who's calling the plays exactly. But I do think you talk about 2 new coordinators, especially considering how good their coordinators were last year with Knowles and Kelly. Now you're implementing a bunch of new players. I understand Texas has a fair amount of turnover too, but they are the same coordinators. A lot more continuity on the coaching staff. So you have players who have also taken a lot of reps moving in. You mentioned Gooseby, who I got to meet a little bit when I was there, a freaky athlete, former basketball player who grew into being a left tackle. I got a fair amount of confidence in that offensive line and what Kyle Flood does as far as development. And to me, the most interesting non-arch thing is the new Texas offensive line, the new Ohio State defensive line, and how that goes. I'll take Texas and a little more continuity in the first game of the year.
All right. So I guess I'm going to be the dissenter here. I think Arch is going to be terrific this season. I think he will be an upgrade because of his playmaking ability eventually. But I think it's on the road. If this game was in Austin, I would pick Texas. It's not. I'm going with the home team. I think they still have a lot of talent on defense, a lot. And Julian Sand has the best group of receivers to go to. I'm fascinated to see how it works with Brian Hartline, the new play caller. He's still the receivers coach there. He had the coordinator title before Chip Kelly took over last year, but he really wasn't running the show. What's different for me and what gives me a little pause about Ohio State is, and Stu, you touched on this, but I think the biggest talent piece they miss is going to be those 2 running backs. I think that's where the biggest drop-off happens. You had Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins weren't just explosive with the ball in the hands. They were really good in protection, blitz pickup, all those detail things. They were experienced. CJ Donaldson has experience, but after that, James Peoples will see how ready he is for the big stage. I also wonder, do they lean on the pass game more? Chip Kelly loves to run the football. We saw it at Oregon. We saw it at UCLA. We obviously saw it last year. Brian Hartline's a receiver guy. I'm not saying he doesn't want to run the football, but I just think that's a little bit of an adjustment, especially when the running backs aren't anywhere near as experienced. Your strength is clearly your receivers. Julian Sand isn't the runner that Will Howard was. And so that part is going to be interesting. But again, because it's a home game, because they still are really talented, I'm going to pick the Buckeyes to win this one. Am I crazy? Maybe.
No, they're the defending national champs. They're playing at home. Not crazy at all.
Aren't they favored? Aren't they like a 1.5 point favorite?
Yeah.
I think it's, this is a good thing now about having 3 people on here. There's so many times that Bruce and I agree. So now there's a better chance we'll have at least one dissenter.
Yeah. And
what's the next game for each of you? Each of us will say which one is the game we're next most interested in.
Okay, I'll go. I'll take Miami and Notre Dame on Sunday night. Again, interesting line battle there. Miami's got a very good defensive line. Notre Dame's got a very good offensive line. And as usual, and this is going to be a theme, we've talked about this already last week, breaking in new quarterbacks. Now, at least with Miami, you're breaking in Carson Beck. And we kind of know what Carson Beck is, the good and the bad of Carson Beck. We've seen his highs and lows. But we think we kind of know what Miami's getting as far as Carson Beck goes. With Notre Dame, I think we were, it's hard to know exactly what that competition was behind the scenes with CJ Carr and Kenny Minchie, but there was it seemed to be very close, and there were some rumblings that it was almost surprising that they picked CJ Carr. He's going to start that game. My guess is you will see both of those guys a little bit. Again, we're in the playoff era. Nobody's eliminated after one game. There's still a long way to go. But I do think for a Notre Dame team that has very high hopes and a Miami team that has high hopes, but I think has a lot more question marks, it's a great measuring stick game. Plus a nice, cool old rivalry.
I'm pumped for all of these. I'm pumped for that one. But first, Saturday night, LSU-Clemson. I'm always a sucker for, I covered the last two LSU neutral site opening games and wrote pretty much the same column after each one about Brian Kelly. I'm a sucker for can Brian Kelly finally win one of these big opening games, but it's big for both of them. I mean, this is Dabo's chance to show that his approach, his kind of old school approach, can still work against these nationally elite teams. They obviously did not do well in last year's opener against Georgia. You've got Garrett Nussmeier against Cade Klubnik, both guys who are being mentioned as Heisman candidates and very high NFL draft picks. And who's the real Death Valley? It's like the perfect Saturday night game. I'm glad. I know Ohio State fans can't stand being in the noon window. I'm glad that game is at noon so I can make sure I see all of the primetime game as well.
Before I say mine, can I ask you guys this? My sense is this game, if Clemson loses it, I feel like it's much more of a gut punch than if LSU does, just because LSU is, Brian Kelly's lost openers every year he's been there. I know he's put all his chips on the table with this game, putting Clemson Tiger Paws all over the facility. And how do you bounce back if you lose? But where I think, and again, Clemson made the playoff last year after getting destroyed by Georgia. So maybe this doesn't, what I'm about to say is undermined immediately. But I just feel like if Clemson loses, it just feels like it maybe takes whoever was on the bandwagon, me especially, or me included, is like, maybe I overhyped them too much or whatever.
So yes, you are taking this personally, Bruce, because you're protecting your pick. You're protecting your prediction. So I understand. But I get your point, right? I think for Clemson, this is not necessarily fair, but I also think you're fair. We're not here for fairness. This is, I think, the reality of it is they are often judged by how they do outside of their conference, right? They're not going to have as many measuring sticks within their conference and within the ACC as they will outside of it, which is one of the reasons why they schedule teams like LSU and Georgia, right? They dive into the SEC. So I think
plus they're playing South Carolina on the back end too. Let's give them credit for that.
But way on the back end. So you will have this situation where LSU within a few weeks will sort of get back into its SEC schedule and have a chance to rebuild its credibility if it loses. Now, there's also the other thing too, like we sort of broader college football landscape, everybody loves to jump on Brian Kelly. So if they lose this game, here's the difference. If LSU loses this game, First Take will talk about Brian Kelly, right? Or like Get Up, they'll talk about Brian Kelly losing another big game because he'll probably be all red-faced and angry, and that'll end up being a topic. I think if Clemson loses, it becomes more of just a college football story. But I understand your point of Clemson sort of needing a launch point where LSU can get off to a little bit of a struggling start, but still recalibrate more quickly because they play in the SEC.
Yeah, I just think all the pressure's on Brian Kelly. Will be Clemson fans be disappointed if they lose? Yes. Are they going to want to fire Dabo Swinney? Absolutely not. If LSU loses, and especially in an embarrassing fashion like they have recently, it is actually within the realm of possibility that Brian Kelly could get fired if they have a bad year, right? That's not the case on the other sideline. Also, even if Clemson loses, I think we still assume they're the best team in the ACC or one of the two best teams in the ACC. Great chance to just automatically play their win in the playoff. Obviously, a lot harder for LSU. So I just think the pressure is much more on Kelly and LSU than it is on Clemson.
Okay, the other game I'm very curious about, and it involves another ACC team that not that long ago was the best team in the ACC, and that is Florida State. They're coming off a dreadful season, 2-10 after, in my opinion, should have made the playoff the year before. The bottom dropped out. A lot of changes from Mike Norvell, cleaned staff house. Both coordinators are new. And it's Alabama. And I'm actually more interested in the Alabama side of this. I think Florida State will be a bowl team. I don't know how much better than that they will be. But Alabama is a team that it's year 2 for Kalen DeBoer. I was in Tuscaloosa like a week and a half ago, was very impressed by what I saw. He's got Ryan Grubb, who was his right-hand guy and his offensive coordinator when Michael Penix was putting up huge numbers and they were playing for the national title. He's back. They have a lot of firepower on offense. I think Ty Simpson's going to step in and be really good. I liked what I saw. He's a much better athlete than I think a lot of people realize. He has a really good receiver room. He's got a really, really talented offensive line, although Jaden Roberts, an experienced offensive guard. He's iffy for this game, and we won't have Jam Miller probably for a month till the Georgia game. He's their best running back. But I want to see their defense step up, right? They were really inconsistent last year. We know what happened against Vanderbilt. I know that they feel like they have way more depth. If this game is a close game, again, I get it's on the road. If this game is a close game, if I was an Alabama fan, I'd be a little queasy with it. I think they're going to be really good this year, but I want to see their defense come out and make a big statement.
When you say, I think Florida State's going to make a bowl, that's just a complete guess, right? Like, they could.
No, I think it is. I think I like their quarterback. I like their quarterback with Castellanos from BC. He's a good dual threat quarterback. You have Gus Malzahn, who loves running quarterbacks. They have firepower receiver Deuce Robinson, who is really talented, transferred from USC. He's a big target, and Squirrel White, tough to say both names, from Tennessee. Fits well with Jalen Lucas. You have these super fast Smurf guys who I think they're it's an interesting offense. And I think Gus is good with this kind of situation where you have a dual threat guy. So I think they will be a bowl team. I just don't know if they're more than a 7-5 team, but after last year, that's a huge step forward.
They might be. They were an absolutely terrible team last year. And so we're just kind of assuming they'll flush out the bad players and bring in all these new players and be better. I don't think they'll go 2-10 last year again.
But they can't be worse. They can't be worse.
So I think we should prepare for the possibility that just because they wear those helmets doesn't mean they're going to go from 2-10 to 6-6. They might be 4-8. They might lose this first game 35-3. I don't know. It's all a guess one way or the other, obviously, but last year, we gave them way too much benefit of the doubt that they could reload after the really good team. They might be getting too much benefit of the doubt now that they're actually going to it's Florida State. They'll go to a bowl.
Yeah, I mean, listen, 2-10 is an anomaly for a team for a program of that caliber. So I'm sort of baking that into the prediction here and thinking at minimum, right, to simply say Florida State should be good enough to go 6 or 7 wins against that schedule. I feel fairly confident that a bounce back is coming. And that last year, it wasn't just bad players, it was just bad, right? And it's hard to recreate that 2 years in a row. I do think that was so messy and bad last year that you can sort of flush a certain amount of it out and blame it on chemistry and whatever else, sort of off the field stuff. It looked like a team that sort of had quit. And I don't expect that to happen this year.
Stu, can I just circle back on this? Do you really think they might be 4-8 or 3-9?
You could tell me they go 9-3, I'd believe it. You could tell me they go 3-9, I'd believe it. In this transfer portal era, there are a few teams that you just look at and go, I have no idea. Don't tell me you can give an educated guess on North Carolina's record this year.
Oh, I can. No, I can. Okay. Because again, look at their schedule. I think I can give an educated guess that Bill Belichick will be competent enough to go 7-5 against.
But we just don't know anything about their personnel. It's a completely new team, right?
We know they have a really good quarterback, Gio Lopez.
Yeah. If you're putting me on the spot, which way do I lean? Florida State doesn't make a bowl.
Where do they have a better chance? What do they have a better chance to do? 3-9 or 9-3?
3-9.
Ooh, I would take 9-3. I would take 9-3.
Florida State has a better chance of missing a bowl than making a bowl. That's what
I like. Stu's out there with 3-9 though. I like that, Stu.
I don't think they're going to go 3-9, but Is it
You
possible?
said they have a better chance of going 3-9 than 9-3, and I think Ralph and I are on the
If
other
you
side
said
of it.
3-9 or 6-6, I would say 6-6.
Okay. But no. I like those binary choices. Right. 3-9, 9-3. And I think they have a better chance of like having a big comeback. Yeah. I think they have a better chance of having a big surge because I think if nothing else, I expect them to have a smaller surge, right? I expect them to get right this year, get on the same page and be a competent
9-3. I'll put this on the YouTube.
Yeah.
If Florida State goes 9-3 this year at the national championship game, I will be your gopher. I will make coffee runs for you. I will iron your shirts. That's how sure I am.
I've seen how you iron clothes, Stu. Yeah. That's not
Probably
doing us any favors.
I feel like I'm just uncomfortable with that whole arrangement, but
rabbit arrangement you want me to do.
All right, let's move on from Florida State, Alabama. Yeah. I don't even know if that's going to be quite as good a game, but it's always interesting to talk about the Seminoles. Talking about the Noles.
Why don't we take a quick break and we come back? Each of us will give you our other game we're most interested in. All right, Ralph, we each going to give a second game we're most interested in this week.
Yeah, because there are so many really big games with, fancy helmet matchups, I think you can go a couple of tiers, 1 or 2 tiers down on the schedule. And there are some really, really cool games. So Friday night, I am very much digging Georgia Tech at Colorado. Now, part of that is nostalgia because I remember when Georgia Tech and Colorado shared a national championship. That was something that happened in this sport, right? For you Gen Zers out there was a year in which Georgia Tech and Colorado shared a national championship, and it had something to do with a 5th down. Just look it up.
And also, didn't it also have something to do with a questionable call in the Notre Dame Colorado Orange Bowl?
Yes,
that was that year, right? Yeah.
Was that year? Right when Ismail's?
I think it was Rocket Ismail.
That was that year.
On return, got called back. Yeah, so we're gonna do a lot of these like old guy flashbacks on this show, folks. So just be prepared.
Bear with us.
Georgia Tech played in the Citrus Bowl and won a national championship. That's how different the system was.
Crazy it was back then. It was college football was crazy back then. So Georgia Tech, interesting ACC team that I think is one of those teams very well positioned to, hey, they're in contention for the conference and it's November. Like, Haynes King, pretty good offensive line, even though there's turnover on that offensive line. But Brent Key has sort of built that program to be run the ball, play good offense, have good offensive line play. Lost some key guys in the portal in terms of pass rush, but they think they have some replacements coming in. And of course, from the Colorado standpoint, the circus to a certain degree has left town in terms of Boulder. And when I say that, I mean, I don't think the spotlight and the curiosity factor is there as much. I'm not necessarily, that's not throwing shade at Shador and Travis Hunter. They're really great players though, and those guys need to be replaced. So what is the next act for the Buffs and Dion? I'm very much interested to see that. I don't think Vegas is particularly high on either on CU. I think they're about a 6-win team over under. Sounds about right to me. And also an interesting build at Colorado. They've done it in a non-traditional way. But if you look at their like 2 deep in their roster, ton of seniors and juniors. They got like a ton of experience, even though they haven't really done it through traditional recruiting. So I'm very much interested in see that matchup on Friday night in Boulder.
Same here. By the way, I hear that Caden Salter, the Liberty transfer, wouldn't be surprised if he is the starter in this. He obviously has more experience than Juju Lewis, who is a big recruit, who's also basically from Georgia Tech's backyard. He's a 17-year-old quarterback. But I think we'll see probably a lot of Salter in this game. I'm going to take a game same night. I'm in studio for this. We have Baylor hosting Auburn. By the way, it's Eric Singleton's old team in your game, Georgia Tech. To compare, he went to Auburn. He's one of the fastest players in college football. I think Auburn needs him in a big way to juice up the offense. Corey Coleman was a huge recruit. They're good at receiver. They're talented. Auburn should be really good on the offensive line. The question is, how efficient can they be at quarterback, right? It's Jackson Arnold up and down last year, more down than up, to be honest, at Oklahoma. Now he transfers, gets to play for Hugh Freeze. Mounting pressure on Hugh Freeze. I mean, back-to-back losing seasons out of the gate. It feels like every time I look at social media, Lane Kiffin's taking a dig at him or taking a dig at Auburn. You can't lose to a Big 12 team. Even if it's a pretty good Big 12 team, you can't lose to them on the road the first time out. I think that would be a really bad spot for Auburn. In Baylor, so you have Dave Aranda took over the defense last year on his own team. I think he's shaking up the defense. That's what we're hearing, that he's, going to be a little different than what he's always been, especially with the fronts, what he's done, and now how it all fits together. A good story for the Bears last year. Remember, Sawyer Robertson really stepped up, and he knows the SEC well from his time at Mississippi State when he's playing for Mike Leach. He fits this offense. You have Jake Spavital, Air Raid disciple, running it. They feel really good about this team. They are a little banged up, though. I know this from talking to some of their staff in camp. They come into this game a little banged up. Very interested. I think this is a pretty big game for Big 12 kind of credibility. I know it's Auburn. It's not like you're going to beat Alabama or Georgia, but I think any head-to-head matchup with the SEC, I think carries extra weight for the Big 12.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's how you get out of that, automatic default of they're, this lesser than conference. All right. Since you guys took the 2 Friday night games, I'm going to go with the last game on Saturday night, 11 p.m. kickoff on Fox, Utah at UCLA, reuniting the Pac-12 schools. And in this case, we get 2 of the probably most interesting quarterbacks in new places. Devin Dampier for Utah, who came over from New Mexico, and obviously Nico at UCLA. It's the honorary Pac-12 After Dark slot featuring 2 former Pac-12 schools. It just doesn't that just sound like a 45-42 kind of game just waiting to happen?
I don't think it's those teams, though. I don't think these 2 teams are quite up for providing that 45-42. But then again, it would be pretty amazing, though, if we saw that from a Kyle Whittingham team after he just imported an offense from New Mexico. It would be cool if that happened.
The remaking of Utah's offense, probably not. I'm probably putting too much faith in Nico there, but something crazy is going to happen. And we all agreed not to choose TCU North Carolina because that's not till Monday night, and we have an episode between Saturday and Monday to look ahead to that one. Bruce, what do you say we bring back our old tradition since we had some games this past weekend? Shout outs.
Yeah, I think we're going to welcome Stu into this. I'm going to go back to week 0.
Welcome Ralph into it.
What did I say?
You said welcome, Stu.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, you guys are interchangeable in my head. Sorry about that, Ralph. All right, so I'm going to go back to week 0, a game that I wasn't expecting to watch as much of as I did, FCS game that was on ESPN2 during the Iowa State K-State game. So Incarnate Word is a program that is kind of, if you're a diehard football fan, you probably know where they are and who they are. That was a school that Cam Ward started his career at. They've had some good coaches come through there. They had a pretty prolific offense last year. They're number 4 in the country in FCS, and they were going to play Nichols, and they got shut down. The number 4 team in the country had 4 turnovers and only scored 6 points. Nichols with a big win. Darian Monroe, I don't know if you guys remember that name. He's the new defensive coordinator for Nichols. He was a really good defensive back at Tulane not that long ago. He played there 7 or 8 years ago, or maybe 8 or 9 years ago. First time as a defensive coordinator. Really shuts down a very, very well-regarded team, top 5 win for Nichols. So shout out to Darian Monroe and Nichols.
So on week 0, I watched the whole Stanford-Hawaii game so that the rest of you didn't have to. It was interesting. Stanford pretty much blew it at the end with the Ben Gulbranson threw this pretty horrific interception to the defensive lineman, and Hawaii came back and won on a walk-off field goal from, I will botch the name, I'm not even going to pretend that I'm not, Kanze Matsuzawa. Hawaii's kicker kicks the game-winning field goal, and we find out after the fact, this guy taught himself how to be a field goal kicker on YouTube. He was visiting the States and saw an NFL game on TV and said, I want to do that. This wasn't like an Australian rules kicker who just changes it up to a different kind of kicking. He just taught himself how to be a kicker, and here he is. He won Mountain West. knocking off an ACC team. First time Hawaii's beaten a Power 4 team since 2019.
All right, so I'm a little limited, obviously, because I didn't get a chance to consume as much week 0. But I figured let's call back to our last show, and it's an easy one. I'll give my shout out to Jalen Daniels, right? Kansas's quarterback. Kansas got off to a nice start. Kansas's quarterback, very much impressed. Bruce, during an interview at Big 12 Media Days, seems like a guy who's pretty easy to root for. He has had a bit of a wild ride over his college career in that. Breakout star a couple of years ago when Kansas has their breakout year, has a bunch of injuries, though, that has sort of limited his appearances in that year. Last year in a new offense, takes a step back along with Kansas in general. They fixed the offense this year, or at least they change offensive coordinators. Listen, I think Fresno State probably has some room to grow under new coach Matt Entz. It's a good program, but in a year one, I'm guessing we're not going to get the best Fresno State this year. Nonetheless, Daniels throws 3 touchdown passes. The offense looks a lot more functional. So we'll give a little shout out to Jalen Daniels, who again, seems like a pretty good guy to root for.
Yeah, when I read Bruce's column about, the interview, I wondered, Bruce, is he your biggest man crush since Scooby Wright?
That's a great callback. Scooby,
he's
right
up there. So one of the things I was glad we were able to do is get his voice, literally his voice, on the podcast as he's telling the story of, he hasn't just had a wild ride in college. He had a wild ride all the way up into high school, right? And then the story I did on him and really his parents, but especially his mom, you got a sense of just every turn. It's like he's surrounded by like 5-star quarterbacks, even to the point where he thinks he has a chance to compete for the starting job. And then Jake Garcia, who at the time was a 5-star quarterback, he transfers in, and then everybody transfers out of the quarterback room. So yes, Stu, I think he's very high on my man crush capacity. I do find myself rooting for him just because I've talked to him for a while. That story was like 3 years in the making, it seemed like. So very happy for him, very happy for his family. By the way, so when Stu, you're talking about the kicker teaching himself how to kick, I want to say I did hear back from somebody who was like very excited about this new format of the Audible and that we are now on YouTube. And this person said to me, you know what you guys should do? Back in the day, you once had a conversation with Stu, and Stu was trying to do a pistol squat, but nobody could see it because there was no cameras.
Yeah.
And so this person, she pleaded with me, you have to get Stu to try to do a pistol squat on camera so the rest of the audience can see this. So I was like, is it either going to be that, or is it a case where Stu teaches himself how to try to kick a field goal that we want by the end of the year? Which
so
of
where
these
I thought
things
that was going was that one of these names that takes me 10 tries to pronounce, we were going to show all 10 attempts on YouTube. We are going to be back on Thursday for another episode before week 1. We will get to your mailbag questions on that one. Please send your questions to theaudiblepod@gmail.com, and we'll see you then.